The moment Britt was about to tell Sidwell the truth, something in this whole mess shifted for me. I cannot help but feel that this was never just another tense hospital scene, never just another person carrying a secret a little too long. No, this feels bigger, dirtier. Like one wrong move was enough to topple the whole table. And if my read on this is even halfway right, then Cullum did not just cross a line. He sprinted past it. He burned the bridge, then stood there watching it collapse because he knew Britt was seconds away from saying the one thing he could not survive. And that is the part I keep circling back to. Britt did not simply know that Cullum attacked Marco. That alone would already be enough to put fear in the room, enough to make a man like Cullum desperate. But the real poison in this story is that Britt may have discovered something even worse. She may have learned that Cullum was the one responsible for Marco's death, Sidwell's son, the wound that never really closed. That is not just a secret. That is a detonator. That is the kind of truth that does not stay hidden once it gets spoken out loud. It spreads. It ruins people. It turns grief into rage. And if Sidwell heard that from Britt, I do not think any of us would be able to predict what happens next. The way I see it, Britt was probably already carrying too much by the time she made her move. Maybe she had reached that point where the guilt gets heavier than the fear. Maybe she had decided that Sidwell deserved to know, even if the truth would leave him shattered. Or maybe she was not acting out of heroics at all. Maybe she knew she was sitting on a fuse. And once she realized Cullum was the one connected to Marco's death, she understood that staying quiet would make her part of it. That is the thing I keep thinking about. People love to say the truth sets you free, but in a place like this, the truth can also get you killed before you ever get the chance to breathe again. I can picture Britt in that hospital room, or maybe in some quiet corner where the world had finally gone soft for half a second. Phone in hand, mind racing, eyes fixed on the door like she already sensed danger arriving before she saw it. And that, to me, is where this theory gets under my skin. Britt would not have needed a grand confession. She only needed a few words. Just enough to put Sidwell on the trail. Just enough to say Cullum's name, maybe Marco's name, maybe one of those broken half sentences people throw out when they are scared and trying to warn someone they trust. And honestly, that would have been enough to set everything on fire. Then Cullum walks in. And I keep imagining that entrance because it says everything without saying anything at all. No loose grin. No casual excuse. Just that cold, flat look people get when panic has already eaten the last of their humanity. That is what makes me uneasy. Not rage. Panic. Rage explodes. Panic calculates. Panic looks for the fastest way out, and if the exit is blocked, panic starts breaking bones. So when Britt sees him, I do not think she is looking at a man trying to argue his way out of trouble. I think she is looking at a man who understands, in a very real way, that his life is over if she gets the sentence out of her mouth. And that changes the whole meaning of the attack. If Britt died because she knew too much, then this was not some impulsive loss of control. This was silence enforcement. Cold-blooded. Desperate, yes, but still deliberate. That matters. Because desperation does not erase intent. It usually sharpens it. It strips away the lies people tell themselves about being forced into a corner and leaves behind the bare truth that they chose violence because it was the only thing left they trusted. I could be wrong, but that is what this feels like to me. Cullum was not just protecting a secret. He was protecting the collapse of his entire future. And Sidwell, that is the other shadow sitting in the room. Because if Britt was preparing to tell him that Cullum killed Marco, then Sidwell is not just a grieving father in this story. He becomes a live wire. A man already carrying suspicion, already carrying pain, already carrying that awful kind of grief that never stops asking for a target. So if Britt was going to hand him the truth, maybe she was also handing him a weapon. Maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. Or maybe she thought she could control the blast radius. I keep going back and forth on that. Part of me thinks Britt was trying to do the right thing. Part of me wonders whether she was also trying to save herself by shifting the danger onto somebody else. Human beings are messy like that. Good intentions and survival instincts get tangled together until nobody can tell which one is driving the car. And Cullum, if he really did know she was about to talk, must have been feeling the walls close in fast. I do not think he had a lot of time to think. That is what makes this theory feel so grim. One message, one call, one whispered plan, and suddenly he is moving with that ugly speed people only use when they know they are running out of options. Maybe he overheard something. Maybe he sensed Britt pulling away from him. Maybe Sidwell's name on a phone screen was enough. I do not know. But I do know this. People who are about to be exposed do not usually behave calmly. They become reckless. They become sharp at the wrong moments. They say too little and do too much. What really sticks with me is how personal this would make Britt's death. Not random. Not a twist thrown in for shock. Personal, because if she died after uncovering Marco's death, then she was not just another victim in a bad situation. She was a threat, a witness, a living piece of the puzzle Cullum could not allow to remain alive. And that is the ugly rhythm of this theory. Marco's death is the buried wound, Britt's murder is the cover-up, and Cullum is the thread tying all of it together with shaking hands. The more I sit with it, the more I feel like the story is not really about one crime. It is about the desperate chain reaction that comes after the first crime never got fully buried. I also keep wondering whether Sidwell was always meant to be the endgame here. Because once a father is told the truth about his child, the whole emotional landscape changes. He stops being an observer and becomes a force. If Sidwell learns Cullum killed Marco, then every little lie, every delay, every evasive answer suddenly becomes intolerable. He would not just want justice. He would want contact, proof, blood, something tangible to put his grief into. And maybe that is exactly what Cullum feared most. Not prison. Not gossip. Sidwell's response, the way grief can turn into something ancient and relentless. The way a man who has already lost everything can become more dangerous than anybody else in the room. So when I look at Britt in this theory, I do not just see a victim. I see someone standing at the edge of the truth, trying to decide whether to speak and save what little integrity she has left, or stay silent and live with the rot. And I think Cullum saw that too. I think he saw the exact moment she stopped protecting him. That is the instant that matters. Not the attack itself. Not the aftermath. That tiny fatal shift when Britt went from carrying his secret to threatening his life with it. That is where the whole thing breaks open for me. And maybe that is why this story feels so unsettling. Because it is not clean. It is not a simple murder mystery. It is fear layered on top of grief, guilt stacked on top of violence, and one bad man trying to outrun the thing he already did. I keep asking myself whether Britt got one sentence out before Cullum moved, whether Sidwell heard enough to start connecting the dots, whether Marco's death was always going to drag somebody else under with it. The more I think about it, the more I feel like Britt was not simply killed because she knew the truth. She was killed because she was about to make the truth impossible to ignore. And that leaves me with the question I cannot shake. If Britt was only moments away from naming Cullum to Sidwell, what exactly was Cullum afraid Sidwell would do first? Chase the truth or hunt the man who took his son?
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.